Hey YouTube, what's going on? Abyssal here, and today I'm going to be giving you guys a guide on the Breath of Sindragosa Frost BK build for 7.2. 7.2 did add in 4 new traits in the new artifact tree. Let me quickly bring them up and I'm going to go over them. First we have the Frosty of the Ebon Blade. This one just simply brings you back to the power level that you were at before 7.2 and 7.15, where we had 14.5% damage. Now added with the Soul Biter trait, we have 15% damage if you have just this and that, but you have less stamina. But then we have Rune Frost. This increases your chance to trigger Runic Empowerment by 20%, which brings it from about every tick of Breath of Sindragosa from about 22.5% to about 28.5%. So it's a decent bump. And then we have the two big ones, Rune Chills. So I'm going to quickly explain this, what Crystalline Swords is. Crystalline Swords is our artifact ability. And we haven't really seen this do much damage in the past. It's just kind of a passive damage buff for wearing Frost Reaper and the other one, I forget what their name is, Frost Reaper and Icebringer. So for wearing them, you get this cool thing what occasionally just hits stuff, I guess. It doesn't do much damage, but it's a nice little passive. On a 100 mil fight, it's going to do like 4 million damage. It's not bad. It's good damage. But Rune Chills makes it so every time one of those passively hits, you bump down the cooldown of your Sindragosa's Fury, the big dragon that comes down and does a lot of damage. Bump that down by 1 second. Now, I'm going to quickly explain this and Thronebringer and how they're kind of your base Crystalline Swords and your Thronebringer Crystalline Swords are different. So Thronebringer makes it so every time you obliterate, one of your swords hits. That doesn't just use up a sword. It's not like what you see when you have the swords floating around you. That's not the only swords that are there. It's constantly going to be spawning swords. You're never going to run out of them. They're going to continue to spawn. Every time you obliterate, one of the swords hits the target, reduces the cooldown, and does a decent amount of damage. This does a lot of damage. Thronebreaker is what you are rushing for. You're not putting traits into anything else until you get Thronebreaker. This is a huge damage buff. It's about an 80 to 90k single target DPS increase. It's huge. It's huge not only because the swords do a lot of damage, but it reduces the cooldown of your Sindragosa's Fury, allowing you to place it in different parts of the fight. An example of this would be right now on Trillax, our guild currently gets the kill in about 4 minutes-ish. Something like that. So we get 1 Sindragosa. Now this bumps the cooldown by about 1 minute and 30 seconds. So I am going to get 2 Sindragosa's Fury in that fight, which is pretty nice. I'm also going to get 2 on Scorpiron. And I always got 2 on Croesus because Croesus lasts about 5 minutes and 30 seconds. So you did it on pull, you did it on the second ad phase. You did it within the first 5 seconds of the fight, I should say. Now, with Thronebreaker and Rune Chill's synergy, you're able to place that in different parts of the fight, such as using it on the first set of ads, so you do a little extra damage, and then using it on the last ad phase, so you're always hitting ads with it, giving you an extra damage buff just because you can place it in different parts of the fight. It's a very nice little thing that you guys should play around with. Remember, your Sindragosa's Fury, technically, for continuing to DPS the boss, and you get, your 2 Hungerings if you have 2, if you have the Seal of Necrophantasia, if you have that, then you're going to be able to easily bump the cooldown by about 1 minute and 30 seconds, which is huge. Anyway, let's go on to the next thing, and that is the changes with the Legendaries for this rotation. This is huge. It used to be the helmet. Helmet used to be Supreme, but since the nerf of the helmet from 40% buffed Howling Blast damage to 20%, it has been bumped down to 4th for single target and 2nd for AoE. So you're still going to want it on most fights because most fights have AoE. I am not blessed enough to get the helmet yet, but I do have the ring and the belt. And I can switch out the belt for the bracers. I have that as well. As you can see here, I have the bracers right there. Actually, I just got my 9th legendary. Still don't have the helmet. Really praying for it because we have Elisande Gul'dan coming up, which I want that for. Anyway, so right now the ring does sim incredibly high. It does. And rightfully so, because it does give you huge damage buff. Because most fights in Nighthold have ad phases. The only fights that are tough to time that for are Augur and Croesus, because Croesus could just, the ads could be far away from the boss. Augur, the ads die really fast, so you don't really get a lot of ad burn time. But every other boss the ring is incredible for, because breath constantly cleaves. That's a huge thing. And it's going to give you more obliterates, and it's going to reduce the cooldown of your Sindragosa because of rune chills. It's also going to give you more Rhyme procs. This ring is amazing. If you have this ring, use it. And I highly recommend you practice using it, because it's, and also plan it out, because it's not an easy thing to just run into. But let's go over the big thing, and that is the rotation with the build. So the previous rotation for when you actually had Breath Up was to always use Remorseless Winter on cooldown. That was the big thing. Once your Remorseless came off cooldown, you would use it, and then you would start to build up no matter how many runes you had. No matter if you had 1 rune, no matter if you had 6 runes. That has changed now. The only time you are going to Remorseless now is you're going to Remorseless if you have 1 rune, so you can't obliterate, or you have 5 or 6 runes. So if you have 2, 3, or 4 runes, use obliterate. Obliterate is too valuable now to be wasting the runes on Remorseless Winter. It just doesn't do enough damage. The only times other than those times I previously stated are if there's heavy AoE. Still, it's such a valuable ability now. For padding purposes, yes, you can put up Remorseless Winter unless the ads absolutely need to die or you're hurting on damage on it. I get that. But the big thing with this now is Obliterate does now cause one of your swords to hit. And the swords do deal base 100k damage, and they can crit, and they reduce the cooldown of Sindragosa's Fury. They are just so valuable that you actually are going to prioritize your Obliterates over your Remorseless Winter unless the previous conditions are met. So now our rotation is Rhyme proc is your most valuable thing. If you have a Rhyme proc up, do not use another Obliterate until you have used that Rhyme proc, because you could overlap and lose one of the Rhyme procs. If you have a Rhyme proc and you use Obliterate, and that Obliterate does proc a Rhyme proc, it's not like you have 2 Rhyme procs. You have one, you lost the other one. So always use your Rhyme procs. Next up, Remorseless if you have 1 or 5 or 6 runes. If you have 2, 3, or 4, do not Remorseless Winter. Start using Obliterate. Obviously, Obliterate with Killing Machine is incredibly valuable. Without, they're about the same right now. Although your Obliterates with a Killing Machine can cost 1 rune because of, I forget what the ability is actually called. It is called Murderous Efficiency. That's the one that makes it so your Killing Machine 1 only costs 1 rune 65% of the time. And then last on your rotational list is your Remorseless Winter, your regular one. Obviously, you're not going to be using Howling Blast without any Rhyme procs. The only time you're going to be doing that, and that specific, is if you're going to be away from the boss for a small period of time and you have more than 3 runes, up. So if you have like 2 runes on cooldown right now, you want to get that 3rd one on cooldown, because 3 can charge at a time. Obviously, that's a different thing. So the rotation with Breath Up looks like this. So first thing we do, this is our opener, is we pop Remorseless and Pillar. We go in, we use our Obliterates, we stack up a bit of runic power so we don't immediately drop breath, and then we proceed with our priority rotation. Anytime we get a Rhyme proc, we are using it. So I would like to get to the point where we drop our Remorseless Winter. So here I'm going to purposely draw my Remorseless Winter right now, and I've dropped it. I still have Hungering up, so I'm trying to get to a point where I lose my Hungering. Okay, perfect. So I've used a Obliterate, I'm using it again, then I Remorseless. I got a Runic Empowerment there. I'm just waiting. I use that, and my breath has ended. That is what your rotation basically looks like now with the new new traits. The rotation looks a little bit like that. If you do hit like 44 rune there, I messed up a bit. I probably should have used Obliterate, but I did get a Rhyme proc, so I had used that over it. Rhyme procs are so valuable, you actually shouldn't extend your breath by using something else in order to extend it to devalue your Rhyme proc, because I could have overlapped the Rhyme proc there, and that would have been a loss of 1 million or plus damage over extending breath 1 or 2 seconds. So that's that. Anyway, quick little tidbit for this is the skepticism around Horn of Valor right now. A lot of DKs are pushing for a Horn of Valor. Horn of Valor has been incredibly devalued since 7.2 came out. With the release of 7.2, secondary stats have become incredibly strong. They have been just huge buff to secondary stats. They are actually, for me personally right now, here are my stat weights. Strength is at 16.48. All of my secondaries are worth more than strength. All of them are worth more, which does make things like stat sticks, and it makes things like Memento of Angerboda, the Allurial Trinket. It makes those better than a Horn of Valor at times. Horn of Valor is still amazing and is still your best in slot, but it is not crazy best in slot. If you get a trinket like a Memento that's 905 and you have a 895 or 900 Horn of Valor, sim it. Just make sure that you're not going to make a mistake with it. Yes, Horn is amazing because you can sync it up when you want, but secondary stats are now worth more than main stats at the high-end rating level. That'll do it for today. If you have any questions, post them in the comments down below, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.